Hi folks, Baz at Garage Strongman. Today I'm going to be making a loadable Husafell stone or shield. I'm going to be making this from odds and sods I've got lying about, so I've got a bit of a plan which I'll enclose now. But I'll just wait for this car to go past. But it's going to be led a bit by what I've got. As you can see, I've got offcuts from our old sort of roofing joists they were. I've cut the first bit of plywood. It's not as thick as I would like, but hopefully it'll do the job. I've cut that to 32 by 32 at the moment, and the plans I'm going off say 30 inches high by 28 inches wide, but it was just looking a little bit small. So I've based my weight plate in the middle, and I'm going to kind of build it around with what I got, as you've seen on the plans. So I just paused there as a big rattly truck was going by. As you can see from the plans, they do a lot of nice sort of angles there, weird sort of degrees to get the joint together. But although I think I've got the right tool for the job, which I've borrowed, this miter saw, I really don't fancy fiddling about with those angles. So what I'm going to do is just do it as you can see there. I really don't think that's going to be a problem. I'm going to get some blocks in the joints there and screw it all together. I'm going to screw it to death basically. So first off, I'm going to be cutting those off square, the same length. And as I say, I'm going to plan the sort of angles based on the wood I've got. Here's my own plan. As you can see, it's not very complex. I haven't bothered with any measurements or anything. So it's going to be so that this will drop in and rest. The reason I am going on the bottom at the moment is I'm going to double up the thickness on this wood here, so when we're dropping the plates in and indeed putting the shield down, it's just got a bit more sort of cushion, if you like. Give it half a chance. But that's about it. As I say, I've cut this to a 32-inch square at the moment. I'm going to see what we got before cutting it down, mark it all up, and then obviously put two pieces together and cut the two the same so they're the same shape. Okay, so the size of it is taking shape now. What I've done is measured this block into the middle. You know, measured the length of it, worked out the middle, put that block in the middle. Then I've cut these two now, they're the same size. And rather than fiddle about with any angle measuring or anything, what I've done, I've just put it to the middle of this block and then to the edge of that. So that's going to give us that 32-inch width, and that one's the same. And just to make sure then, I've measured from there to there to make sure they're both the same, and they are. It's just 13¼ inches. So I've plopped the weight in, I've lowered that down, and that's leaving just about the width of this, so I can get another piece in there. So I'm just going to measure that piece now, cut the piece for the truck to go by to, as I said, just give us that double thickness on the bottom, extra bit of strength so I can screw all that together. And then I've just got to decide, again, probably going to be based on the bits of wood I've got left, to work out that angle at the top. To be honest, I'll probably measure up from the plate here, because the opening's got to be just big enough to get that weight plate in there. So I'll probably take it up just to that kind of width. Okay, so I found two pieces of wood that are just about the size I want. And again, rather than faff about with the angles and decide what angle I want it and then try and cut them and You know, I don't need to cut them, they're exactly the same size. So again, I've just poked that on the middle of there, brought that up flush with there, done the same the other side. I've measured from there to the end 11 centimeters, and from there to there 11 centimeters, so that the angles are perfect, or you know, as near as I care about. And then just one final check. We've measured the width of that 16 inches, and we got, as you can see, an inch either side to spare. Plenty of room to get me disc in. So next, I'm going to mark this up, mark all the board up, stick another bit of plywood underneath, cut the two bits together to make the exact shape I want, then put the wood back on, get some blocks in there in the corners, fix it all together, fix the frame together, screw the one side to it. Mustn't forget my other block that I want in there. Yeah, and then screw the top part on. I think that'll be about it then. I was thinking, due to not making the angles nice and everything, of maybe cladding over it with some of this. But I'm probably not going to bother. I'll give it a bit of a sand down afterwards. You know, I don't really want splinters in my arms. I know Strongman, but you know, there's no need to be stupid. And I'll probably paint it then. Watch this space. I just chopped my piece to fit in there. Simple case of measuring it across there, 17 centimeters, marked it up, chopped it, fits. Sweet as a nut. Okay, I've measured this up now, well, I see, marked it up, ready to cut. I've marked all the positions of the blocks, you know, I don't really need to. I'm just going to cut the outside line. Something was off a little bit there, so I had to move that one just to match that one to give us those nice corners. Get my other piece now underneath and cut that out. Right, as you can see, I didn't put the two together and cut them. I haven't got clamps. I thought they'd probably move around it and go wrong. So I've cut the one out, and then I'll draw around that one onto that one and cut that one out. Okay, so I drew around that on the other bit of plywood, and now I've got my two sides. My frame is back down there, ready to go on, and then I'm just gonna have to make some little sort of blocks to firm it all up and screw it together. Right folks, this is now day 2 of the build. I had to leave it yesterday because the rains were coming, and having had a night to sleep on it, I'm thinking that my blasé attitude about angles might come back to bite me on the arse. Now, excuse the seagull. Oh, it's a racket. Right, so I stick by what I said. It doesn't really matter what the angles were, and obviously using the materials I had, it kind of created its own answers. The issue now is, because I want to make some blocks to go in here, essentially I want the frame to support itself. I don't want to rely on this thin plate to take any of the weight. You know, the screws coming through there, potentially if we're dropping it onto here, might just bust out the screws in that kind of not quite thick enough ply. So I want the frame to stand up in its own right, so I'm going to get some blocks in each of these corners. Now the issue comes, one, actually measuring that angle. I'm not sure I've got a protractor, but two, getting the saw to cut it if it's an odd angle. If I'd gone off the plans, this angle here would have been 120 degrees, and obviously it would be easy to set the miter saw to 120 degrees. I'm going to somehow have to measure that and find out exactly what it is and get the block cut roughly to that angle so I can screw into it there and there and make that joint a lot stronger than it would be just from screwing the plates into it. Let's have a look. So I've been in to see my boy, and unfortunately he's left his protractor in school, so measuring that angle was going to be a problem. As luck would have it, there's one there on my workbench. So the solution has been to fold a bit of paper into that angle, take it up there. There should be a little dot there in the middle of the protractor, but there's not. We'll just get it so the angle is nice, and that's 130 degrees or 50 degrees from that side. So we should be able to set the miter saw to a 50 degree angle. I would imagine that's 50, yeah, and cut my blocks to match for here and here. I'll have to get my disc back out and see how it fits, whether I can fit a block in there or whether that will be enough screwing in there. Probably, I think that'll be solid enough with that extra piece like that. So it's just going to be those two. So the problem is realised. The most I can turn that to is 45 degrees, not the 50 that I need, and that leaves us with that problem. So what I'm going to do, I think, is adjust my thing. Adjust, it basically just means cutting the plywood a bit. Probably have to take a bit off that piece of wood and cut the plywood differently, but it's gonna give me a much stronger join there, and the same the other side. Always consider your angles, folks. Lesson learned. Alright folks, I've cut my pieces now. I got two of those, which I found wood, it's the exact, or there or thereabouts, height of that. So I've cut four of those wedges there, and now the angle is adjusted to 135, which gives you the 45 degree cut to make the 180. So always measure, guys, always plan your angles. Now to compensate, I've just got to trim that bit of plywood off, and also a little bit across the top just to make it look a bit nicer. But there we go, no real harm done. And the bottom one, the weight slot's right down in there, so this bottom brace is going to have to be enough. I'm just going to drill across there, or screw I should say. I'm going to screw it to death. I'm not taking any chances, so I'm going to, before I cut those side pieces off now, I think I'm going to screw it all together so my frame is solid and I know exactly the size of it, and then I'll cut the plywood to match. I don't want to be cutting it again, so I'll measure it all up then from the frame that's screwed together, so it'll be a little bit tighter, give me my exact frame size, plate size, and cut that off, and I think I'll be nearly done. Okay, I've screwed those bits in. I'm going to do this one now, and what I'm doing, I'm coming in, I'll be by there, I'm going to drill in about halfway, for two reasons. One, to countersink my screws a little bit so they're not sticking out here where I'm going to hold it, but also because that's the length of the screws I've got, so I want half of it in each side. Okay, I've screwed all this side up now, that's pretty solid. Just got to do the other side. And the second thing I've noticed and would advise people to do is not bother cutting your faceplate until afterwards, because there's quite a lot I've got to cut off there, and that is going to be a little bit tricky trimming that. You know, it's the same both sides. It's helped me visualize it, so I don't totally regret it, but if I was going to advise someone else to do it, draw up some plans first, get your angles right, 45 degree, depending on what your saw can cut. Obviously if you can cut 60 degree you could have 120 and 60, but 45 degree and 135 would be that total angle. Works well for me and my saw. Build your frame first, make sure that's pretty solid, as mine will be, and then do your faceplate. Basically just draw around it, cut your faceplate out to match perfectly, which I'll do next. Okay, so there's my basic frame built. As you can see, this different side of the sun, it's pretty solid in its own right. So that's what I wanted. That should take the brunt of any force putting it down. Got that extra bit of wood there, take some of the force, screwed in from the bottom. Now I'm just going to lie it down, draw around it, do my two face plates. So I'm back with a jigsaw now, got my new line, nice purple line, and I cut round that. Right, I've given it a bit of a sand in, just take the rough bits off. I'm now going to screw the plate on the top, and I'll probably sand it a bit more afterwards because it's not perfectly lining up. I can buff that down, you know, make it a bit more smooth around the edges once it's screwed on. Right, got it all screwed together. I'm just going to give it a bit more buffing on the other side to make sure it's all nice and smooth for the lifting. So I got this sander. So there we are, folks, there's my shield finished. I'll give it a quick demonstration. I don't know what it weighs yet, empty. Getting down's a problem for me with my knees. Oh, I'll have to build a plinth to carry it off. So there we go, away we go. I recommend proper footwear when using this item. Took me a few hours work, that's all. No cost because I had all the wood lying about, but I wouldn't have thought that cost too much to build. It's a bit more fun with a bit of weight in it. And I'll have a go with that tomorrow, get some proper weights in there, see what I can do, see what it takes. Oof. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed my video, please drop me a thumbs up and please subscribe for future Strongman content. I'm Baz, a Garage Strongman. See you soon.